Scammers are stealing billions of dollars from America's seniors, and they're ramping up their efforts. With calls, texts, or clicks, they can steal a senior's entire life savings. But we have the power to stop these criminals. AARP is fighting for bipartisan, common-sense solutions to protect older Americans' hard-earned money from scammers. Join us today. Visit action.aarp.org/fraud pledge. Paid for by AARP.
Welcome to the program. No Victocrats allowed because we've got a country to save. So let's get her teed up!
You want to play what? Say hello to my little friend!
What the hell's going on out here?
Ooh, that's a bingo.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243, Larry Elder, Salem News Channel. President Trump says there's no time limit on the Iran war. Iran's economy is being squeezed to the brink. The next gerrymander battle will be Florida. Adam Schiff calls ICE an out-of-control police force. CNN's Africa correspondent says Trump is surprisingly much beloved in Africa. We'll look at the highlights and the lowlights from last night's California governor debate. The anti-hate group, the Southern Poverty Law Center, has been giving money to hate groups. It is now under investigation by the DOJ. CNN's Dana Bash said Hasan Piker, whom I call the Democrats' David Duke, is excusing sexual violence by Hamas terrorists. All of this and more, 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I want to get into Virginia. I want to talk about Iran. But first, this happened last night on CNN, number 10.
Africa is a continent. There are 55 different countries. There are different takes there. But so what is the overall feeling about President Donald Trump on the continent of Africa?
President Trump is surprisingly much beloved in Africa, and people don't realize this. Part of the reason why President Trump is beloved in Africa is because he's got a strong opposition to abortion. People feel like he probably is not pro-LGBT rights. People are very religious in Africa. Many people are religious, either Christian or Muslim. And so they feel that President Trump represents those conservative values that they agree with. Obviously, President Trump has made some decisions that affect Africans moving to the United States. There's a lot of visa restrictions, the aid cuts that affected USAID. In Cameroon, where Pope Leo is right now, maybe 600,000 people might not have food in the next few months because of the aid cuts that affect USAID and foreign aid by the United States. But overall, I think when I go around Africa, people like President Trump. They like that he speaks his mind. And they remember him from The Apprentice.
Oh, interesting.
It was very well syndicated across Africa.
That's interesting.
What? President Trump is more popular in Africa than he is here? What about the USAID cuts? We like him because he speaks his mind. We like his values. There's less Trump derangement syndrome in Africa than there is here. When he leaves office, maybe you ought to run for president of Nigeria. Now, I got a letter. Dear Larry, Trump started this redistricting thing with Texas. If Trump hadn't put his foot in his you-know-what, we wouldn't be having these problems. Okay. This is from ABC News, February 20, 2018. Pennsylvania's new map helps Democrats. Pennsylvania's new congressional district map, released Monday by the state Supreme Court, is sure to improve Democrats' electoral outlook in the state. Over the long term, Democrats can expect to occupy 1 to 2 additional seats compared with the current map. There is an organization called the Brennan Center for Justice, nonpartisan law and policy institute based at the NYU School of Law. Founded in 1995, operates as a think tank, and a group focusing on voting rights, campaign finance reform, criminal justice, stuff like that. This is dated December 20, 2021. Maps drawn under unified Republican control has seen by far the most challenges, with a total of 65 cases contending the GOP crafted maps were either racially or politically discriminatory or both. or violated other provisions of applicable laws. By contrast, only 17 cases challenged maps drawn under unified Democrat control. May I repeat that? 65 cases challenging the redistricting done by Republicans, 17 cases challenging it being done by Democrats. Pennsylvania, in particular, the Brannon Center, this stands out, considered to be the biggest Democrat gain of the cycle. This is in 2018. After litigation backed by Democrat-aligned groups, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out the GOP congressional map. A new map drawn by the court dramatically shifted outcomes. It went from 13 Republicans, 5 Democrats, to 9 and 9, reducing the number of Republican seats by 4. Overnight, by 4. Where were you when that happened? Where was the media? Where was CNN? Where were all the people saying Donald Trump started this? Where were you? You see, when Democrats do it, Democrats challenge it. Under the radar, nobody cares. This brings us to the gerrymander that Obama did when he was a state senator in Illinois. Did you know about that? I mentioned it the other day. Senator Obama, State Senator Obama, not U.S. Senator yet, State Senator Obama decided to challenge a Democrat who held a House seat. His name was Bobby Rush. He's no longer with us. He got primaried by State Senator Obama. And Bobby Rush, a former Black Panther, painted Obama as born and raised in Hawaii, doesn't know anything about the streets, carpetbagging lecturer at University of Chicago by way of Harvard, attended prep school, has no clue about the life of a typical Chicagoan. And it worked. He lost the primary. He performed particularly poorly with black voters. So what did this defeated candidate do? He redrew his state Senate district with the use of computers. There's a guy named John Corrigan who helped him do it, Illinois Democrat, worked with Obama to draw the seat. Corrigan called it, quote, a radical change, close quote. His words, not mine. Corrigan says he remembers 2 things about the district that he and Obama drew. It retained Obama's High Park base. He managed to beat Rush in High Park, affluent. And then it swooped upward along the lakefront and toward downtown. By the end of it, it bore little resemblance to his old one. The new district was wealthier, whiter, more Jewish, less blue-collar, less black, better educated. It also included one of the highest concentrations of Republicans in Chicago. So Obama had no problem with that redistricting, but then later on he said redistricting is bad. It means that the politicians are picking their voters rather than the other way around, which is exactly what he did. I'm not going to call him a hypocrite, but it's pretty hypocritical, isn't it? Both sides do it. But this thing that they've done in Virginia, I've never seen anything like it. It went from 6-5 to 10-1. Are you kidding me? In a state that's purple? In a state that Biden barely won? Now the representation for Republicans in that state will be 1. Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida says, okay, you guys want to play that game, we can do it here to offset what you've done in Virginia. To which Hakeem Jeffries had this to say, number 12.
Our message to Florida Republicans is F around and find out. If they go down the road of a DeSantis dummy-mander, the Florida Republicans are going to find themselves in the same situation as Texas Republicans, who are on the run right now. And under no circumstances are Texas Republicans picking up 5 seats. They'll be fortunate if they get 2 or 3. While in California, we are going to get all 5. The Republicans are dummy-mandering their way into the minority before a single vote is cast, because they started this war, and we're going to finish it.
To which Governor DeSantis said this, number 13.
I heard this guy Jeffries popping off in Washington about Florida. He wants to be Speaker of the House, and he's kind of like, more liberal than Pelosi and all this other stuff from New York City. I just want to know, Florida can't do, we're going to go after Florida. Please be my guest. I will pay for you to come down to Florida and campaign. I'll put you up in the Florida governor's mansion. We'll take you fishing. We'll do all this stuff. There's nothing that could be better for Republicans in Florida than to see Hakeem Jeffries, everywhere around this state. Voters will not like what they see. They will not want that type of ideology. And so the door is open. The invitation's out there. I don't think there'd be anything better for the Republican Party of Florida but to have Jeffries there. Now, I kind of feel bad for the guy because he's as left as they come.
Meanwhile, court in Florida has stopped the gerrymandering effort so far. I'm Larry Owen. Parents, the biggest question in education today is how artificial intelligence is shaping the way your student learns. Artificial intelligence is changing education faster than most schools are willing to admit, and many families are rightly concerned. At Patrick Henry College, the goal isn't to outsource thinking to machines. It's to train students to think for themselves. PHC emphasizes a Christian liberal arts education that develops reasoning, writing, speaking, and discernment skills no algorithm can replace. Students learn to engage technology wisely, understanding its capabilities, but also its danger and limitations, rather than becoming dependent on it. In a world increasingly shaped by AI, Patrick Henry College prepares students to lead with wisdom, conviction, and moral clarity. If you want a college that prepares your child to lead in an AI-driven world without losing his or her faith and values, I encourage you to learn more about Patrick Henry College. Visit phc.edu/elder. That's phc.edu/elder. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. I said a court in Florida shut it down. No, a court in Virginia has stopped the certification of the vote last night to redistrict Florida to eliminate all but one Republican seats, Republican districts, number 32.
But first, breaking tonight, a circuit court in Virginia ruled a short time ago, within the past 2 hours, that the redistricting referendum passed by voters yesterday is unconstitutional. The judge is now blocking certification of the election and denying a motion to stay pending appeal. Virginia's Democratic Attorney General responding by posting that he plans to appeal that. Correspondent Mark Meredith has all the details tonight, live from Alexandria. Good evening, Mark.
Brett, good evening to you. Plenty of new drama here in the Commonwealth tonight. Republicans are challenging the legality of yesterday's ballot measure. They have asked a judge to throw out the case, essentially to wait for it to happen. An injunction was issued. The judge agreeing. Democrats, as you mentioned, say they are going to appeal, that there's no merit to this case, that they believe this is an attempt to override the will of the voters. Either way, Brett, this is creating a lot more chaos ahead of November's midterms.
Donald Trump and Republicans launch this gerrymandering war. We're going to finish it.
Tonight, Democrats are claiming victory after Virginia voters narrowly approved a referendum giving state lawmakers power to redraw congressional maps this year, likely shrinking Republican representation from 5 House districts to 1.
It's a hyper-partisan gerrymandering boondoggle.
Critics accuse Virginia's Democratic governor, Abigail Spanberger, of flip-flopping after previously calling gerrymandering detrimental to democracy. She says it's now justified after Texas redrew its maps.
We want to respond to what we see other states doing at the request of this president.
Republicans say the fight's not over. The state Supreme Court has yet to rule if the referendum was legal to begin with.
We believe we have a very strong case before the state Supreme Court.
Today, President Trump, without proof, said the race was rigged, adding, "Let's see if the courts will fix this travesty of justice." Multiple states have already redrawn maps this year. Republicans say they've likely increased the majority by 3 to 5 seats in Texas. Democrats say the same in California. Both parties making smaller gains in Utah, North Carolina, and Ohio, with Democrats now holding to a 2 to 4 seat gain overall. Next up, Florida, where a proposal meant to gain Republican seats may be unveiled as soon as next week. Top Democrats are vowing to spend millions to fight back. Today, Governor Ron DeSantis said, bring it on.
Please be my guest. I will pay for you to come down to Florida and campaign. I'll put you up in the Florida governor's mansion.
Other states are also looking at redistricting, including Louisiana and Missouri, but some court cases have slowed down the process, and the states are also eagerly awaiting a ruling from the Supreme Court when it comes to the Voting Rights Act, which could limit the role race plays when it comes to drawing new voting maps. Brett.
And Eric Holder, Obama's AG, formed a committee in 2017 to advise states on how they could redistrict their maps to favor Democrats. In 2017. He's been doing it for 9 years, has advised a whole bunch of states. Nobody cared. Here is the current governor of Virginia last year, number 18.
Short answer is no. Certainly, Virginia, by constitutional amendment, has a new redistricting effort that was put in place and first utilized after in the 2021 redistricting. Certainly, I've been watching with interest what other states are doing, but I have no plans to redistrict Virginia.
And this plan, of course, failed miserably in red areas where 80% voted against it. Number 35.
Virginians voted in favor, 51 to 49% of redrawing congressional maps here in the Commonwealth. So let's look at how we voted locally. All of the red on this map rejected the new maps. In our area, Campbell, Appomattox counties had an 80% no vote. 79% of the people who voted in Bedford County voted no too. And in Lynchburg, it was 55% who voted no.
Look at this map. Almost all red, a few areas that are blue, and now just one seat will be held by a Republican. Are you kidding me? This was Scott Jennings last night on CNN, number 20.
Their maps in Texas are far more balanced and fair than what you now have in Virginia. I mean, Virginia has now essentially ruled the Republican Party to be illegal. That's what Abigail Spanberger has basically done. This was the revenge of the D.C. bureaucrats.
No one has said the Republican Party is illegal in Virginia.
I mean, go from 6 to 5 to 10 to 1, and you've got 5 of the 10 that are going to live within 10 miles of each other.
They drew the map in the most aggressive way possible. I totally agree with that. And that doesn't mean that it's illegal to be a Republican.
Okay, well, it's going to be pretty darn hard to make it to the congressional delegation. And how do you think? Outside of the D.C. suburbs, how do you think the rest of the state feels? They feel like they've been disenfranchised. Look at the vote. Look who voted no. It's everywhere that's going to lose their congressional representation. How do you think the people in the military feel?
But now you care about the Democratic.
Notice he said they basically made it illegal to be a Republican. That didn't make it illegal to be a Republican. You can still be a Republican. He was being sarcastic, which is what Senator Murphy said when he said awesome about his assumption that some Iranian boats had evaded the blockade. It doesn't make it illegal. Now, there was a debate last night with some of the candidates running for governor. They're altogether 50 candidates. And the stars of that debate last night were Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco. Before I get into some of the highlights and lowlights of the debate, there's a piece in City Journal by Christopher Rufo called How Gavin Newsom Subsidized the Migrant Evasion. Subheadline, the California governor has spent nearly $1 billion on nonprofits that want to dismantle the border and abolish ICE. Quote, Gavin Newsom has granted approximately $1 billion to an army of nonprofits that encourage unchecked numbers of migrants to enter the country, fought deportation orders in the courts, and led street protests against ICE. This is taxpayer dollars. Turned a wave of desperate people into pawns, ground zero for the Biden-era migrant wave. States saw an enormous number of people cross the border, including more than 400,000 between 2021 and 2023 alone. This is the nation's largest sanctuary state. Hundreds of millions of dollars to nonprofits that have encouraged the flow of humanity across the border. Since Newsom took office almost 8 years ago, California has granted massive contracts for migrant-related services, more than $250 million to Catholic charities, $85 million to Jewish family services, $12 million to Centro Liga de la Raza, $23 million to the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, and a whole lot more. One of the nonprofits is called Al Otro Lado, a nonprofit that helps migrants enter the country, hence the group's name, which is translated to the other side. Touts on its website efforts to provide, quote, freedom of movement, close quote, to migrants. There shouldn't be any borders at all. I'm just getting warmed up. Triple 8-971 SAGE 888-971-7243. Larry Elder, Salem News Channel. Getting back to Gavin Newsom. This, by the way, didn't come up during the debate. All this money being given to these nonprofits, taxpayer money, nonprofits that openly advocate for open borders, openly advocate there ought not be a border at all. The one called Al Otro Lado, which means the other side, openly campaigns for open borders. Their litigating attorney said this, and I'm quoting him: I honestly believe that there's no reason for why we should have borders. Your tax dollars go to an organization whose lawyer says, I honestly believe there's no reason for why we should have borders, end of quote. Are you kidding me? In another video, the group shows off books from its library, such as Undoing Border Imperialism, that quote, remind us that the U.S. is S blank blank T, close quote. There's another one called Oasis Legal Services, another taxpayer-funded group, has worked on helping, quote, queer and trans immigrants navigate immigration relief and benefits, close quote. The group boasted in a recent report, quote, the odds of winning an asylum case goes up 99% for clients when they are represented by an Oasis team member, close quote. Your tax dollars. Rufo says since the beginning of his term, Newsom has granted more than $100 million to nonprofits that fight deportation orders, sometimes even for clients with criminal convictions. You can't make this up. One of the most prominent of these anti-deportation nonprofits is something called the Immigrant Defenders Law Center. The group portrays the United States as an oppressor, calls the Trump administration white supremacist, has accused ICE of causing terror, and this group has explicitly called to, quote, abolish the immigration prison system and to abolish ICE, end of quote. By the way, this group, Immigrant Defenders Law Center, represents thousands of migrants in deportation proceedings, even working with them before they cross the border, to advise them on what to say in order for them to have their asylum case granted. The article says it's impossible to find precisely how many illegal alien criminals have benefited because thanks to a California law that prohibits officials from disclosing defendants' immigration status in criminal court without a judge's permission. So there's no telling how many. There's also then the activist element. Protesters, as you know, launched anti-ICE demonstrations downtown L.A. Those riots cost $32 million, led to hundreds of arrests. At the center of this is something called the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights Los Angeles, which since Newsom took office has been awarded $110 million from California taxpayers. You could call it a one-stop activist machine. The ability to produce propaganda, engage legal action, most importantly, mobilize to get people on the streets. The group coordinates with something called LA Rapid Response Network, which tracks ICE raids and, quote, takes direct action to shut down detention centers, close quote. That's what they say, not me. A House Judiciary Committee launched an investigation to determine whether this group was using public funds to, quote, support violent criminal activity. Senator Josh Hawley accused the group of, quote, bankrolling civil unrest. So who benefits from this? Obviously the illegal aliens who enter the country, but also the army of nonprofits, lawyers, activists, bureaucrats, and politicians who somehow find campaign contributions given to them. All of this under the Democrat leadership in the state, which, as you know, has not elected a Democrat statewide in over 20 years, and Democrats have supermajorities in both chambers of our legislature, in the state assembly and the state senate. When we come back, more California shenanigans. And now California is considering forcing companies to research their possible ties to slavery. I'm not making this up. Yes, California was not a slave state, but whatever. Never stopped them before. For 250 years, Americans have believed in one powerful idea, that we were meant to live free. Free to work hard, free to move, free to enjoy life without being held back. But if every day aches and pain are slowing you down, it might be time to declare your independence from pain. I've told you about my brother Kirk having difficulty going up and down the stairs in the morning until he took up my advice and began taking Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free, research-based formula designed to help your body fight inflammation, one of the root causes of pain. It's not a quick fix or a temporary mask. It works from the inside out, at the source. Relief Factor was created so people could get back to living life on their terms, walking, working, exercising, and enjoying the moments that matter. This year, as we celebrate 250 years of American independence, take a stand for your own freedom. Declare your independence from pain. Try Relief Factor today for just $19.95. Your 3-week quick start is ready for you. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-4-RELIEF, 800 the number 4-RELIEF. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243, Larry Elder, Salem News Channel. In a minute, we're going to talk to David from Tarzana about why we're paying so much money at the pump. First, let me just quickly go over this article in Forbes, came out just now. Headline, A Self-Imposed Energy Crisis Looms in California. I repeat, self-imposed. It talks about what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on with Iran, closure of the Strait, that has exacerbated things. But the real problem in California is self-imposed. New paper released by a team of researchers at USC and UC Berkeley warns that California could face an energy crisis created by anti-oil and gas state policies, as well as what's going on right now with the war. Says that California is entering, quote, a period of acute supply shortages directly attributable to prior refinery closures and the long-term systemic decline in in-state crude oil production. California used to be headquartered to all 10 of the largest oil and gas companies. Now it's headquartered to none. Refineries have been shut down here in California. That crazy fuel mixture adds a lot of money to the price of gas here in California. Paper says a self-imposed energy crisis. Quote, it is key to note here that the Golden State's looming energy crisis has arisen almost entirely as a result of years of policy decisions made by the state government. Drivers in California have long paid the highest gas prices in the nation, thanks largely to the state's onerous gasoline tax, which also ranks as the highest of any state. As time has gone on, the state has layered additional taxes, fees, and other costs to pump prices even higher. Keep in mind, too, that Gavin Newsom wanted to outlaw the sale of new gasoline-powered cars by the year 2035. The state and regulatory measures has shut down the state's once prolific oil and gas industry. Drilling permits take months, even years, to acquire when they aren't outright denied. The Newsom administration has refused to allow the building of much-needed new pipelines and worked overtime to force the closure of California's handful of remaining oil refineries, creating the need to import refined products in addition to crude oil. Quote, as a result, says Forbes, a state which once exported its own oil production and refined products to other states and overseas has become broadly reliant on imports to meet the needs of the world's fifth largest economy. It's a dangerous formula, writes Forbes, similar to the fix in which Germany currently finds itself after 20 years of the same kinds of policy choices. It says that California has turned into a de facto energy island, which prevents it from easily and quickly importing gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other products from nearby states. California's low-carbon fuel standard mandates a special blend of gasoline not used in the rest of the country. Professor leading this study says he's urged Newsom to temporarily suspend this, but he was ignored. No one in the state is in charge, apparently willing to address doing something for this. Quote, Gavin Newsom, writes Forbes, has used this rising gasoline prices as an opportunity to blame President Trump. While it is certainly true that gas prices in California, as well as the rest of the country, have risen since the Iran conflict, neither the president nor anyone else at the federal level can be blamed for the state's $2 a gallon price premium at the pump. Nor is anybody outside California to be blamed for the conscious decision by state policymakers to shut down their oil and gas pipeline and refining sectors and rely on countries like Iraq, South Korea, India, even the Bahamas for the state's energy needs. End of quote. David is in Tarzana. David, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Larry, long-time listener, first-time caller, great show. I love what you bring to the radio networks. I have a better understanding now of my question, but it still begs the question, why isn't something being done about this? And I just can't believe that Newsom keeps getting reelected. He's out of luck now, but afraid we may get somebody just like him.
Or somebody even worse. Your question, though, is why does this keep happening? The answer is the voters keep voting for Democrats. They keep voting for the same people, the same policies, and they're all environmental extremists. If anything, Gavin Newsom was a more climate change alarmist than Joe Biden. Joe Biden never said, I'm going to outlaw the sale of gas-powered cars by the year 2035, which Gavin Newsom did. Gavin Newsom outlawed the sale of gas-powered lawnmowers and leaf blowers. It doesn't matter that if you eliminated every single one of the so-called greenhouse gas emissions in California, it would have zero impact on the climate. That's why. That's why the housing prices are so high. All these environmental policies that jack up the price of a house. Leo Haney, an economist at UCLA, says the average price of a home in California should be about 15% higher because we have earthquakes, but not 100% higher. All that is because of the environmental policies that these left-wing Democrats have been pursuing now for decades. Why isn't something being done about it? Why isn't the media yelling and screaming about it? Because they've supported all this. LA Times endorsed Gavin Newsom. Endorsed Gavin Newsom during the recall. Sacramento Bee endorsed Gavin Newsom. LA Times endorsed Karen Bass, whose management of the fires was not terribly impressive, was it? This is a left-wing state, left-wing media, not critical. They don't want to look in the mirror and go, oh my God, what have I done? This is the same state that jacked up the minimum wage for fast food workers, and one study shows that it lost 10,000 fast food workers, including 1,100 on the day that Gavin Newsom signed the bill. Now here's a number that will keep you up tonight. The odds of our universe having the exact physical constants needed for life, 1 in 10 to the power of 10 to the 123rd. That's a number so large there aren't enough particles in the universe to write it down. That's not philosophy, that's physics. And a brand new documentary called The Story of Everything is putting those numbers on the big screen. The film dives deep into the mathematics of fine-tuning, the information code buried in DNA, and the precision engineering inside every living cell. The film features Dr. Stephen Meyer, cosmologist Brian Keating from UC San Diego, and Oxford mathematician John Lennox, serious scientists asking a serious question. Does the evidence point to design? Whether you're a physics junkie, a curious skeptic, or just someone who loves having their mind blown, this is the film to see. The Story of Everything, in theaters April 30th through May 6th only. Over 600 screens nationwide. Get tickets now at thestoryofeverything.film, thestoryofeverything.film.
Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. Only hours ago, President Trump was asked several questions about the Iran war. We'll be talking about that, top of the hour. Stick around for that. There was a debate last night with the, quote, major Democrat, Republican, and Democrat candidates for governor. This exchange, Tom Steyer is a billionaire who has spent, I think, close to $150 million so far, more than all the other candidates combined, to promote his candidacy. Number 19.
Mr. Steyer, where do you draw the line on this? Should language proficiency for truckers be strictly enforced, even if it means that some of them will probably lose their jobs? You have 60 seconds.
Look, I agree with what was said, which is we don't know the context of this stop. But what I can say is this: racial profiling is illegal. And in fact, picking on people based on the color of their skin in the state of California is illegal.
So to require truck drivers to be able to speak English and read English is racial profiling. This is what we're talking about here in California. Then you have Xavier Becerra, who used to be AG and was the HHS secretary during the Biden administration, number 17.
What grade does he get on homelessness, and what, if anything, would you do differently? You have 60 seconds.
Frank, I would say that the governor has made efforts. We've seen him come down to Los Angeles, actually go out and try to clean some of the streets. On effort, I would give him an A.
You would give Governor Gavin Newsom an A on homelessness because, after all, he's come down here and tried to clean up the streets. $30 billion, nobody knows where the money went, and since then, homelessness has only gotten worse. But you'd give him an A. And then there's this exchange between Katie Porter and Steve Hilton, number 43.
What grade would you give him on homelessness, and what, if anything, would you do differently? You have 60 seconds.
I'm a notoriously tough grader, but I would probably give him a B on homelessness. I don't think this has been an easy problem to solve, but I do give him a lot of credit for calling attention to the problem. When he campaigned 8 years ago, he was talking about housing when nobody else was.
Wow, by the way, I'd love to be in your class, Katie, if you get a B for what Gavin Newsom's done on homelessness. My goodness.
He was talking about housing when nobody else was. Are you kidding? Been talking about housing for decades. Katie Porter was asked about her famous hot temper, number 21.
Steyer, thank you. Frank.
Ms. Porter, you've acknowledged that your interactions with an aide and with a reporter captured on videos which went viral were, in your words, a bad look, and that you could have done better. What have you done to address those concerns? And as a person who frequently speaks about being a parent on the campaign trail, what would you tell your own kids if they ever faced a boss like that? You have 60 seconds.
I apologized that day to that staffer 4 years ago.
So let's get her teed up!
You want to play what? Say hello to my little friend!
What the hell's going on out here?
Ooh, that's a bingo.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. We're going to turn to the war against Iran. Received this letter from Ray, Land O'Lakes, Florida. Veteran, served 27 months overseas, he says. I cannot understand Senator Chris Murphy defending Iran with silly words. I was a Dem. I went GOP in 2015. Yes, I am now MAGA, and my family loves 45 and 47. I was also going to Iran in 1979. I was stationed at Fort Riley in Kansas. Ended up not going, he said. I'm very proud that Iran is going down. I pray that the people of Iran will rise up. God bless America. Close quote. Here's what Caroline Levitt said about the Strait of Hormuz, number 28.
Well, we'll see. We hear a lot of talk from the Europeans. Unfortunately, we don't see enough action as far as President Trump is concerned. In his view, he tested NATO, and they failed. They failed to come to the defense and to join forces with the United States as the president engaged in this very bold and courageous operation to take out the #1 state sponsor of terrorism in this world, the Iranian regime. And again, through Operation Epic Fury, the United States on its own, of course with the help of our partner and friend Israel, but on its own, irrespective of the European nations and our NATO allies, has completely degraded Iran's military. We have completely confused and obliterated their regime. They are in a very weak position thanks to the actions taken by President Trump and our great United States Armed Forces. And so we will continue this important mission on our own. And again, we've seen a lot of talk, but very little action, and the president is well aware of that.
And regarding Senator Murphy, he's the one who posted awesome on X when he heard wrongly that Iran had been able to evade the blockade with several ships. Awesome. Who does that? He had pushback. He said he was being sarcastic. Number 23.
What do you say to people who think that you were siding with Iran with the awesome post on social media?
Yeah, it's so unbelievably disingenuous. Obviously, all these Republicans know that I was being sarcastic. They just don't really want to actually have to answer for the fact that this war has gone off the rails. I mean, you're talking about a war that's cost American taxpayers billions of dollars, that's allowed for Iran to control the strait. It's more deeply integrated. Iran, Russia, and China. Over a dozen Americans have been killed. Doesn't seem to be any end game. So Republicans don't want to talk about that. So they try to create fake outrage over sarcasm. I mean, it's a fight, unfortunately. We've got to eventually convince Republicans to vote to end a war that is hurting American citizens, hurting our reputation around the world. But I get it. This is what Republicans do. They try to find anything to distract from the actual merits of the case. I got to find which
with sarcasm. Do you think Trump sometimes misunderstood on social media?
Let me get to my meeting. Appreciate it.
As we discussed yesterday, even 60 Minutes said that Iran was very close to getting a nuke. People say that Iran's last card is the Strait of Hormuz. It isn't. Iran's last card is the American left. This is Representative Jonathan Jackson, Illinois, Jesse Jackson's son, number 22.
The Democrats, I know you said it, that it's an illegal war. Do you think the troops that are there right now are following legal or illegal orders from President Trump?
I think that the president says it's an excursion, which it's not. The Secretary of Defense, who calls himself the Secretary of War, has our greatest block of naval assets, our military bases are being attacked. We first have to agree on the truth and call it for what it is. It is a war. And then the second part of that is it legal or illegal? Without the authorization of the United States Congress, it is illegal. And so we need to first line up get in sync, figure out if this is something that the nation asked for, if it's something the nation wants to commit its resources to. It's going to be an enormous drain on our resources. It comes at the expense of food and shelter and housing, health care at home. So I think we need to bring people to the table, try to get out of there. It's causing the fuel and energy prices to go up around the world, and things can only get bad. Now, I particularly want to say something to the soldiers that are over there. They're in my prayers, and we're trying to change the policy right now to bring them home. They're about to go into the hot season. It's still coming out of the spring, if you will. We're about to go into the summer season. And you're going to look at temperatures of 100, 130 degrees Fahrenheit, being on those ships and working with those hot materials of the fires, the rockets, the blasters, that our soldiers did not sign up for this. And so they are in my thoughts. We should not have lost those 13 soldiers. So I'm doing everything I can to bring our children and our soldiers back home.
And you've probably seen...
Let's go this way.
Sure, no problem. When Trump said, if there's no deal, the country could be destroyed, you saw some members of Congress saying, well, troops could refuse illegal orders. In your mind, what would that be? What would be an example of an order that they should not follow if it got to that point?
Right. I wouldn't get into that. I mean, our soldiers have to do everything now to protect themselves, but the president should lower his rhetoric with the vice president, talking back to the Pope. There are people that want to see humanitarian and civilian infrastructure saved and not abolished. We don't want to become guilty of heinous acts against civilian populations. We started this war off by killing a bunch of children in a school. For that, we should be extremely remorseful about. Now, on Easter Sunday, he's boasting about having blown up bridges and cursing out, seeing his curse words on the Truth Social feed. It's just wrong. It's just vulgar. We're better people than that. I don't think he has the spirit of the American people. I've got to get to a meeting.
Where do you start with this? We started out this war by killing a bunch of children. He mentioned the 13 service members that have been killed. They didn't sign up for this. Of course they did. They signed up to follow the orders of the commander-in-chief. I tell you, didn't sign up for it. The number of people that are killed every weekend in Chicago. Some weekends in Chicago, 13 people are killed. Where is Mr. Jackson on that? Again, the number one weapon Iran has is the American left. This is the CEO of the Foundation of Defense of Democracies, number 24.
Well, I think the Guard Corps, the regime in general, believes that the only place they can beat Americans is at the negotiating table, because that's where they beat Americans. That's where they beat the Obama administration. Secretary Kerry and Undersecretary Sherman negotiated a fatally flawed agreement in 2015. So I think they're expecting, when they show up to Islamabad, that they can beat another U.S. president. I think maybe they're learning a painful lesson that may not be true. I think the other thing is they're playing good cop, bad cop on us, right? They're pretending that there are these, quote, moderates who are prepared to make a deal while the IRGC, the hardliners, are not. But we have to be very careful not to fall into that Persian trap that they've repeatedly set for American negotiators, and I hope the president and his negotiating team doesn't fall for that trap once again.
Now, did you hear about the 8 Iranian women that were scheduled to be hanged? Number 29?
Well, first of all, Martha, only President Trump could save the lives of these 8 beautiful Iranian women who he has received direct word from the Iranian regime, or what's left of it, that their lives are going to be spared. And that comes as a result of President Trump asking them directly not to kill these young, beautiful women who certainly deserve a chance to continue living their lives freely and peacefully. And now that will happen thanks to President Trump, because he's a humanitarian at heart. I understand this news story about the scheduled execution of these women came across the president's desk, and again, he made that direct plea, and the Iranians have answered and have agreed not to execute them.
Fetterman says that the Iranians must be very excited about the American media and the Democratic Party, number 31.
It's almost as if, we've forgotten on the Democratic side that the real enemy, the real threat, the real danger is Iran and its proxies to. And every single Democrat We want to break Iran. We make sure they never acquire a nuclear bomb. As we are approaching that 60 day of the war powers in the law, Iran must be so excited by the American media and the Democratic parties, the way it's like, as long as we can hang on for 60 days, more and more people continue to vote.
And notice Representative Jackson was not asked, Senator, sir, do you believe that they have a nuke, or they were ready to get a nuke, and we should do something about it? Not asked. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. Alexander is in Banning, California. Alexander, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you so much for calling.
Yes, I wanted to find out why Steve Hilton is not listed with the other candidates for governor in the primary election pamphlet that I just received in the mail. Could someone clear that up for me, please?
Do you have it in front of you?
I do.
Okay, is Tom Steyer on it?
Tom, good question. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I get to the S. The governor is here. And Tom Steyer. I did not see Tom Steyer here.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Alexander, here's the deal. When I ran for governor, that's a sample ballot. And if you're willing to abide by campaign finance limitations, you can submit, I think it's a 500-word essay, and they'll publish it. If you want to raise more money than the campaign finance limitations, you don't get to be on that. So Steve Hilton made the decision he was going to very likely raise more money to exceed the campaign finance limit. So therefore, he doesn't get to be on that. That's why I asked about Tom Steyer. He's a billionaire, and he's blowing through the campaign finance limits easily. So he's not on there either. That's what the rules are. If you want to be on that and have a bio there, you have to agree to abide by the campaign finance limitations. And I had a long debate with my staff because they thought I wasn't going to raise very much money. I raised $27 million in about 8 weeks. That was way above the campaign finance limitation. Now, you can raise more money, but the way you spend the money is severely restricted after that. So I said to my campaign team, I'm going to raise way more money than this. They said, well, Larry, you never run before. I said, but I'm well known. I'm on live in the Bay Area. I'm on in San Diego. I'm on in the middle part of California. I'm on in Fresno. I'm on in Ventura. I'm on in LA, of course. And they said, well, and so I blew through the finance limitations. So therefore, I could still spend money, but not in the same way if you did not agree by those limitations. So Steve made the decision he's going to raise money beyond that, and I'm sure he did. Steyer, of course, raised money well beyond that. So that's why you didn't see either of their names on that ballot. It's just a sample ballot. It's just a guide, really. Now, let's turn to the president today discussing the war. First, he had a presentation about forcing drug companies to lower their prices, and I clicked over on CNN to see if they were talking about this because President Trump talked about the savings the American people were going to make because he's pressuring the drug companies to use most favored nation prices. And I cut on the CNN, and they were talking about who's going to be the next cabinet member to be fired. And I cut on MSNBC, and I forget what they were talking about, but it wasn't this. So Fox ran with it live. I didn't check Newsmax, but I'm pretty sure Newsmax also ran with it live. So you ask why President Trump is so unpopular. It's because the media are not covering some of the stuff he's doing on affordability. But he gave a very long presentation. Robert Kennedy Jr. spoke a little bit. A couple other people spoke a little bit about gas prices. The CEO of a pharmaceutical company talked about how they're giving away a drug that treats deafness. It doesn't just treat it; it cures it in kids. It cured it in this particular kid who was there. So it really was quite an impressive press conference presentation about what he's doing in order to lower the cost of drugs for the American people. But if you're watching CNN, if you're watching MSNBC, and very likely ABC, NBC, CBS tonight won't have one word about it. But Fox did. And then, of course, nobody cared. Reporters were there, and their first 12 minutes or so were simply questions about Iran, which is what you expect. But the president, being the president, took the questions. Number 53.
Questions, please.
Yes, sir. Could you talk a little bit about why your Navy Secretary was fired yesterday, sir?
He's a wonderful guy. I just put out a statement about him. He's a very good man. I really liked him, but He had some conflict with, not necessarily Pete, with some other, he's a hard charger, and he had some conflicts with some other people, mostly as to building and buying new ships. I'm very aggressive in the new shipbuilding, and somehow he just didn't get along with them. He's an excellent guy. I think he would have gotten along great with me. I didn't really deal with him too much, but he's I consider him to have done a very good job. I put out a nice statement about him. You got to get along, especially in the military. You got to get along, and some people liked him, some people didn't, and that's usually the truth about everything. But I found him to be a very good man, and I liked him a lot.
On the war with Iran, how long are you willing to wait until you get a unified response?
Don't rush me, Jeff. Guys like you want to say, oh. So we were in Vietnam for 18 years. We were in Iraq for many, many years. We're in for I don't like to say World War II because that was a biggie, but we were 4.5, almost 5 years in World War II. We were in the Korean War for 7 years. I've been doing this for 6 weeks. And their military is totally defeated. They're outside of the little wise guy ships. I call them the wise guy ships, the little boats that they have running around with guns in them. We'll take them out too when we see them. But their Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, their anti-aircraft is gone, all of their anti-aircraft machinery is gone. Maybe they loaded up a little bit during the 2-week hiatus, but we'll knock that out in about 1 day if they did. We've done an amazing job. Their leaders are gone. Their leaders are all gone. Part of the problem is that, that's why I can't really answer your question, they have all new leadership and they're fighting like cats and dogs for who's going to control. Because we've created a real mess for them, but they've created a mess for the world over the last 47 years. They've killed a lot of our people. When you see a soldier, a young person, or now an older person, but a person without legs or without arms or with a face that got blown to pieces, most likely it was from Iran. It was Soleimani who I killed. Soleimani loved the roadside bomb. He was an evil genius. He was a brilliant general. Probably we wouldn't be as far advanced had I not taken him out. That was the beginning of it all. And then I ended the Obama horror show. The nuclear transaction that he made was horror. I gave him a road to the, you call it, the deal that he did, the Iran nuclear deal, was so bad. It gave him a road to a nuclear weapon. And I will tell you, I deal with him. You cannot give Iran a nuclear weapon. This is all about a nuclear weapon. They cannot have the nuclear bomb, and they're not going to have the nuclear bomb. So we've taken out their military. We've hit about 75% of our targets. We stopped a little early because they wanted to have some peace. And we have a blockade that's 100% effective. And they're getting no business. And as you know, they're not doing well economically, financially. They're not doing any business because of the blockade. They want to make a deal. We have been speaking to them, but they don't even know who's leading the country. They're in turmoil. So we thought we'd give them a little chance to get some of their turmoil resolved. But, and I hope the fake news, people like you, I hope the fake news are going to be able to write about it accurately, because when you say, oh, they're fighting very well, they're not fighting well. They've been obliterated, Jeff, obliterated.
We'll come back to this. Abby Phillip of CNN said, it's a stalemate. Stalemate? Chris Murphy says we're losing. I'm Larry Elder.
Africa is a continent. There are 55 different countries. There are different takes there. But so what is the overall feeling about President Donald Trump on the continent of Africa?
President Trump is surprisingly much beloved in Africa, and people don't realize this. Part of the reason why President Trump is beloved in Africa is because he's got a strong opposition to abortion. People feel like he probably is not pro-LGBT rights. People are very religious in Africa. Many people are religious, either Christian or Muslim. And so they feel that President Trump represents those conservative values that they agree with. Obviously, President Trump has made some decisions that affect Africans moving to the United States. There's a lot of visa restrictions, the aid cuts that affected USAID. In Cameroon, where Pope Leo is right now, maybe 600,000 people might not have food in the next few months because of the aid cuts that affect USAID and foreign aid by the United States. But overall, I think when I go around Africa, people like President Trump. They like that he speaks his mind. Mm-hmm. And they remember him from The Apprentice.
Oh, interesting.
It was very well syndicated across Africa.
That's interesting.
What? 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm Larry Yoder. Coming up, we're going to talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's the group that's been set up to combat hate groups. Turns out they've been giving money to hate groups. I told you. Once you run out of racial grievances, because racism is no longer a major problem in America, you have to manufacture new ones. So they were literally giving money to hate groups, including people that were involved in the Charlottesville deal, where President Trump was accused of saying there were good people and bad people on both sides. Apparently, the Southern Poverty Law Center paid some activists to show up there as well. Also, the Democrats have what I call a Hasan Piker problem. He should be called the Democrats' David Duke. And I think what the Republicans ought to do, to paraphrase Senator John Kennedy when he was talking about Ilhan Omar, the Republicans should deploy Operation Let Him Speak. I'm going to remind you of some of the unbelievable things this man has said while standing up next to a man who wants to be the next Democrat senator in Michigan. And several other Democrats have appeared on his podcast. Question, why are you overpaying a wireless company that does not share your values? That's why I launched sagewireless.com. Same nationwide network, plans from $25 to $60 a month. Keep your phone number, keep your phone. A percentage of every bill feeds families through Food for the Poor. So if you weren't able to get involved in our campaign for Food for the Poor, you can do so by paying less on your wireless company bill and simultaneously help people. Food for the Poor. sagewireless.com, sagewireless.com. Before I get back to the president on Iran, Abby Phillip of CNN referred to the war as a quote-unquote stalemate. Chris Murphy, of course, has been saying that we are losing. Call it a fiasco. Victor Davis Hanson wrote a piece called How Iran Committed Suicide. Just read you part of it. It says Iran is on the verge of, quote, utter economic and military collapse. It says Iran's reputation peaked on October 7, 2023, the massacre in Israel that Iran helped to fund and coordinate. They were able to take advantage of Joe Biden's cognitive decline and the way the administration had constantly criticized Israel. Also, after Biden pulled out of Afghanistan, China got more aggressive, Russia invaded Ukraine. It further eroded America's stature. And then you have the European appeasement. Iran, the theocracy, assumed that its ring of fire terror proxies in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen could squeeze Israel. They were wrong. They assumed Biden was going to get reelected. They were wrong. They assumed he was going to get reelected and revive the Obama-era appeasement. Biden begged Iran to re-enter the deal when they finally left years later. They lifted sanctions. They gave Iran cash. They even removed some terror designations from some of its proxies. So the regime, Iran, now flush with new oil revenues, guess what they did? They stepped up their nuclear enrichment. Tehran assumed that Israel would not strike its nuclear installations because of the reputedly state-of-the-art Chinese and Russia air defenses. And they had in their own armada of thousands of ballistic missiles and drones, short-range rockets of its Arab terrorist clients. They thought they were protected. But Iran sorely miscalculated. I'll get back to that in a second. Right now, our Jewish friends feel forgotten. There's a Jewish woman named Esther I'd like to tell you about. In her home in Israel, Esther is living through days and nights of fear, sirens sounding, rockets screaming through the sky, long stretches spent in a bomb shelter. 84 years old, Esther is elderly, fragile, and alone. Imagine that. No help, no food deliveries, no medical care, no one knocking at the door. In a war zone. But because of friends like you, Esther is not alone. Through the fellowship, you are there, bringing food, meeting urgent needs, and reminding Jewish people like Esther you are not forgotten. In times of fear and uncertainty, your compensation, your compassion brings hope and help. Esther asks that you hear these words. To those who give, you are doing a very great mitzvah, a good deed. You give from your hearts. May God protect you. Your prayers for God's protection and for the peace of Jerusalem give Jewish people like Esther hope. Support ifcj.org. Support ifcj.org.
Rock me slowly, take it easy. Don't you know that I have never been going through my
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243, Larry Elder, Salem News Channel, coming to you from the Relief Factor studio. Don't forget your Relief Factor, 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF, or relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com. Back to Victor Davis Hanson's analysis of what's going on in Iran. But the cognitively challenged Biden re-election candidacy imploded. Replaced by Kamala Harris, Democrats lost power. Trump pulled off the most amazing political return in modern American history. I said it's the greatest comeback since George Foreman. Iran kept bragging about its air defenses and its vast missile fleet. But he says Iran's reputation was never based on any actual successes on the battlefield. Its forte has been getting other people to fight, its proxies. When Israel preempted this and destroyed the Iranian air defenses during the 12-day war, Americans pounded its multi-billion-dollar nuclear facilities. The world saw for the first time how hollow the theocracy has always been. He says that its patrons, Russia and China privately, despise Iran. Just use it as a useful anti-American and anti-Western tool. But Russia got mired in Ukraine, lost Syria, and was forced to cut Iran loose. The Chinese saw Iran merely as a cut-rate gas station. As long as it was free to buy sanctioned Iranian oil on the cheap, China sold Iran almost every weapon system Tehran wanted. But now that has evaporated because of the blockade. They have no idea what Trump will do. Their methods of delaying won't work with him. The regime is bleeding over $400 million a day in revenue. Quote, in sum, Iran can no longer credibly bluff, threaten, or delay. Not even the American left and the European appeasers can save it. Its 47-year facade is in ruins, end of quote. Back to President Trump.
You're right about it accurately, because when you say, oh, they're fighting very well, they're not fighting well. They've been obliterated, Jeff, obliterated. 159 ships are in their Navy. You know how many ships are at the bottom of the sea, Jeff? 159. So, and if you read the New York Times, the failing New York Times, subscriptions are way down, as you know. That's because people don't believe the stuff anymore. If you watch CNN, you'd think that they're doing well in the war. They're not doing well. They're getting absolutely decimated. Now, with all of that being said, we'll see what happens. They have a lot of... we have no pressure. It's only guys like you with a question like that about what's your time. We've been doing it for 5.5 weeks.
But, sir, is your administration been 8 weeks that the U.S. now has been involved with Iran? You had initially said it would be 4 to 6 weeks.
Well, I hope that, but I also took a little break. I gave them a break. And remember this, I want to make the best deal. I could make a deal right now. Do you know that if I left right now, we had a tremendous success. It would take them 20 years to rebuild, but I don't want to do that. I want to have it everlasting. I want to have it where they never have a chance to get it. I mean, the way you asked that question, yeah, I did say it. I thought it would take 4 to 6 weeks, and I was right, because at the end of 6 weeks, at the end of 4 weeks, their military was decimated.
So are you saying
but now what I'm doing, I can't tell you that. I don't want to put that kind of a timetable on it, but it'll go pretty quickly. And we'll have the strait opened up. Now, right now, we have it closed. We have total control of the strait. And the fact that it's closed, they would have opened it up 3 days ago. They came to us and they said, we will agree to open the strait. And all my people were happy. Everybody was happy except me. I said, wait a minute, if we open the strait, that means they're going to make $500 million a day. I don't want them to make $500 million a day until they settle this thing. So I'm the one that kept it closed. We have total control of it. And it'll open when they make a deal or something else happens that's very positive.
But what do you say to the American public? What do you say to the American people who question how much longer this will take? Obviously, you know that they are having higher.
You're such a disgrace. Did you hear what I just said? Vietnam. How many years was Vietnam?
I understand, sir. But
how many years was
Vietnam?
Vietnam?
Deadline, so
well, I did my.
I took
the country out militarily in the first 4 weeks. I took it out militarily. Now all we're doing is sitting back and seeing what deal. And if they don't want to make a deal, then I'll finish it up militarily with the other 25% of the targets. We've hit 78% of the targets that we've wanted to hit. We've knocked out their manufacturing. We've knocked out their missile production. We've knocked out their drone production. We've knocked out everything. In some cases, when I say knocked it out, 70, 80, 90%. It's amazing what we've done. So I've done that within that period of time that I mentioned, but I don't want to rush myself, because every story says, oh, Trump is under time pressure. I'm not. No. You know who's under time pressure? They are. Because if they don't get their oil moving, their whole oil infrastructure is going to explode. You know what that means? Because they have no place to store it. And because they have no place to store it, if they have to stop it, something happens that only Len can explain. Something happens underground that essentially renders it in very poor shape, and you never recover fully. You can recover 50, 60%, but you can never have it like it is right now. And they have a matter of days before that event takes place. So I'm not under any pressure whatsoever. We've never had so much ammunition. Our ships are loaded. I call them locked and loaded. They're locked and loaded. They're ready to go. We have much higher quality equipment than we did when we first started the war. And or the military operation, whatever you want to call it. And they're coming to us. The problem they have is they are very disorganized right now. Well, now yesterday, and I was very pleased with this, 8 young women were going to be executed yesterday afternoon at 6 o'clock. And I asked them, call it a favor or call it just a moral request that they not be executed, and they came back with an answer that they won't be executed. They're going to release. It was protesting. 8 beautiful young women, very young women, and their pictures in the paper, and it's been a story for a little while. And I saw that, and I said, "Let's see if we can save them." And it was very nice what happened. So they're not going to be. What they're doing is, as you know, they're releasing 4 of them very shortly, and they're going to keep 4 of them in jail.
We'll get back to that shortly. Now, our founders believed that freedom wasn't just a word. It's a way of life. The freedom to move forward, the freedom to pursue what matters most, the freedom to live fully. But pain is a way of taking those freedoms away. That's why Relief Factor exists. I've told you about my golfing buddy, Tom, scratch golfer, out on the course almost every single day. Says he couldn't pull that off without Relief Factor because of shoulder and back pain. Relief Factor is a 100% drug-free, research-based supplement designed to help support a healthy inflammatory response, addressing pain at its source, not covering it up. Over 1 million Americans have found relief and reclaimed parts of life they thought were behind them. So this year, as we celebrate 250 years of freedom, ask yourself a simple question. Are you living with the freedom you deserve? Relief Factor gives you the opportunity to live pain-free and get back to the life you love. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-4-RELIEF, 800 the number 4 relief.
All she wanted to hear was these down home blues all night long.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. We're going to talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center coming back and the Hasan Piker problem that the Democrats have. Now, regarding supportifcj.org, Esther asks that you hear these words. To those who give, you are doing a very great mitzvah, a good deal, a good deed. You give from your hearts. May God protect you. Stand with Israel in prayer by visiting supportifcj.org. That's supportifcj.org. Back to the president.
To sort out negotiations.
I'm not asking you for more time. I'm not asking for them. No, it's not more time. I'm not asking anybody for more time.
If you need more time, does that mean Americans should anticipate spending more on gasoline for the foreseeable future?
For a little while. And you know what they get for that? You know what they get for that? Iran without a nuclear weapon that's going to try and blow up one of our cities or blow up the entire Middle East. You want to see what shock would be? And I have to be honest, the stock market is at an all-time high right now. I thought it would have been down 20, 25%. When we hit, wait a minute, wait, can I finish my question, wise guy? Stock market's at an all-time high right now. I projected, and I'm pretty good at this, that the stock market, Howard, would drop maybe 20%, 25%, and I understood that, and I said, hey, it's a bad thing, but I have to do what's right for the country, even the world, because you can't have them, you cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. So the stock market, unlike what a lot of people were predicting, I thought they weren't necessarily wrong. The stock market today hit an all-time high. Hit an all-time high yesterday, the day before, and it's staying there. I thought oil would go up to maybe $200 a barrel, and oil is at a different number than anyone thought. In fact, this country is much lower because we have all the oil we can use. We're actually, ships are coming from all over the world to Texas, Louisiana, and Alaska. They're coming from all over the world to get oil from the United States, while this is closed, the Hormuz Strait. So if you look at what I said, I guess it was right, because I said I'd have it 4 to 6 weeks, and in 4 weeks we have totally defeated their military. So right now, I don't want to rush it because you guys are, trying to make us look as bad as possible. I don't want to rush it. I want to take my time. We have plenty of time, and I want to get a great deal. I want to get a deal where our nation and the world is safe from lunatics with nuclear weapons. Yes.
If it does go to 200, are you okay with that, sir? If oil goes to 200?
I think that there's nothing worse than a nuclear weapon that takes out one of your cities or 2 of your cities or 3. I think there's nothing worse than a nuclear weapon that's going to destroy the Middle East, including Israel. I think there's nothing worse than Europe being under attack by people that have missiles now that reach Europe. As you know, they don't reach us, but they reach Europe. But they will reach us at some time, probably the not too distant future, unless we stop them now. I think there would be nothing worse than having nuclear holocaust in Europe, London, Paris, various places in Germany, all targeted.
When we come back, the Southern Poverty Law Center and another NASA engineer was reported missing, has been found dead in a burned-out Tesla. What is going on? I'm Larry Older. So let's get her teed up!
You want to play rock? Say hello to my little friend. What the hell's going on out here?
Ooh, that's a bingo.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. A 29-year-old NASA engineer who was reported missing has been found dead in a burned-out Tesla in rural Alabama. This was in last July because of the concern about scientists and engineers connected to NASA and national security. It's been another look at this. 29 years old. His name was Joshua LeBlanc, rising star at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, where my mom is from, which is the heart of America's space and defense rocket programs. He specialized in nuclear propulsion technology, serving as a team lead for NASA's space nuclear propulsion. Considered to be a rising star. his Tesla Model 3 was discovered burned beyond recognition around 2:45 p.m. on July 22 last year, after veering off the road, slamming into a guardrail and several trees, about 2 hours from his home. His family reported him missing at 4:32 a.m. the same day after he uncharacteristically failed to show up for work. His blue 2021 Tesla Model 3 had been tracked sitting for 4 hours at Huntsville International Airport, just minutes from his apartment, before it headed out on rural back roads. Last known communication was early that morning. The body in the vehicle was burned so badly that ID had to be confirmed through forensic sciences. So there's now a renewed interest in his death. FBI is investigating this along with the Departments of Energy and War. Let's turn to what Victoria Coate with Heritage said about the economic squeeze that the blockade is putting on the Iranian economy. Number 44.
I don't think that we did anticipate the success of this, but of course all the signs were there, and it was a historic decision by the president to impose this kind of reverse blockade, prevent the Iranian product from getting out of their ports, and then truly hammering their economy. And I don't think we can overestimate the systematic damage to their economy by this action of the president. And with all due respect to my good friend Elliot Abrams, I think that is a much more powerful card that we are playing here than the small boats that the Iranians are deploying to harass shipping in the Strait. So I think we're going to see, as you were just reporting, that 2-week period as the Iranian stocks fill up and they don't have any more room for storage. They are going to be desperate to get these ships out, but we clearly can stop them. And so then they're going to have to make a decision with whatever leadership they have if they want to preserve themselves or face economic collapse.
Well, look, Victoria, I know we have some idea of the money involved in this. $435 million a day was an earlier estimate. It only gets worse at this point because they literally can't move anything out of Iran on a ship. So with that, how long do you give them? You said a couple of weeks, but what do we know about their economy and the tenderness, the vulnerability there now?
Well, what we don't have metrics on, but we know has happened, is what it has meant to their domestic economy to shut off internet to 99% of their population for now 2 months. That is just a huge blow in terms of commerce. What is happening with their banking system? Last time I looked, they were printing 10 million rial notes. Eventually, Harris, you run out of zeros. There's just these numbers become meaningless because the currency is so thoroughly degraded. And then they're also being cut off from things like their financial networks in Dubai and UAE, which they had traditionally used to launder money. UAE is going after that now. This week that they announced that they are breaking those things down. That is another massive blow to Iran. So I don't know that we have a full picture, but the picture, when it emerges, is going to be bleak.
How long can they tread water? And who's in charge? Caroline Levitt, number 33.
You guys all see a lot of different messaging coming out of Iran, a lot of different rhetoric and language from them. I would caution you to take anything that they say at face value. What we've seen is that what they say publicly is much different than what they concede to the United States and our negotiating team privately. I've said that repeatedly to all of you in the news media, and you should take our word for it.
As far as Trump extending the ceasefire, number 36.
As far as the formal negotiations, humanitarian issues are of a great concern to this president. But with respect to the negotiations that are ongoing, he's made his red lines very clear. Iran can never obtain a nuclear bomb to threaten the United States and our allies, and they must turn over the enriched uranium that's in their possession. While it is very far into the ground, thanks to the success of Operation Midnight Hammer, it's important to the president that they hand that enriched uranium over. He's made that quite clear to them. And now we're waiting to hear back from the Iranian regime. The fact that they cannot send a unified message yet, which is why the president decided to extend the ceasefire, just shows how effective Operation Epic Fury truly was, because there's a lot of internal division over there. The president understands that, and so we await their response.
The reason Alan Dershowitz left the Democratic Party is because 70% of Democrats, he said, prefer the Palestinians over Israel. Here's what John Fetterman said, number 38.
Why you don't have to agree with everything that's happened in Epic Fury when, I mean, I'm old enough to remember that when our military is involved, you all just line up and get behind them and give them an opportunity to accomplish those goals, because these goals were not, new or shocking to Democrats. We've all agreed we can never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb. When we're in this opportunity, we're right there at the cusp. Why vote against that? Now, if you're giving a speech in Spain, of course you're going to say those kinds of things. The way that Spain has behaved during Epic Fury and before, they would even do kinds of petty things that they boycotted Eurovision because of Israel's involvement in it, just that kind of thing. Now, Europe really has forgot the history as well, too, what America did during World War II and what happened to the Jewish community in Europe, the last time.
Right.
So that's why I'm proud to stand, firmly with Israel and our military where we're at now.
And as I mentioned, Alan Dershowitz says he's leaving the Democratic Party, registering as a Republican, primarily because of Israel and the anti-Semitism within the Democrat Party. Number 37.
My Democratic Party was Kennedy's Democratic Party, Bill Clinton's Democratic Party, a centrist party that believed in due process, free speech, and that's not the Democrats today. And what really drove me over the line was they elected in New Jersey a congresswoman who was virulently anti-Israel to the point of crossing the line to anti-Semitism. They are about to nominate in Michigan a man who campaigns with Nazis at his side, people who support Hitler. 70% of Democrats of all ages prefer Palestinians, which means Hamas and Hezbollah, over the Democratic State of Israel. That's no longer my political party. I will work as hard as I can to make sure that the Democrats do not get control of the House, do not get control of the Senate, do not get control of the presidency. I do not want Liz Warren and Senator Murphy and AOC in positions of authority in chairmanships. I will work very hard against that. I don't agree with many of the things in the Republican Party. And if I could register with an asterisk saying I'm a Republican largely on foreign policy issues, I would do that. But under our system, you have to pick and choose. And I have picked the Republicans and Democrats.
And this is a Michigan representative explaining why we have a relationship with Hasan Piker, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. Number 27.
We should be debating these. I mean, we know, honestly, what most people in Michigan are worried about is the ability to pay their bills, not being able to afford groceries at the end of the month. That is the overwhelming issue that people are talking about. So when we look at trying to build a coalition that's going to get us over the finish line and actually build a durable majority, we can't create a table where people aren't invited and voices are shut down and identities are attacked. Have an idea, raise it, let's talk about it. Let's have a civil conversation about it. But that is not what we saw over the weekend, and it's really concerning.
How many times did Donald Trump have to renounce David Duke? Hasan Piker is Democrats' David Duke. And here they are embracing this guy, campaigning with him, appearing on his podcast. I'm going to remind you of some of the things he said recently and what Dana Bash said about him on CNN. 888-971-SAGE. I'm Larry Elder. 888-971-SAGE. 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. Brian is in Sacramento. Brian, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Larry. Thank you for your wonderful show. I know through reports Saudi Arabia does not like the Crown Prince of Iran. And Jared Kushner is very close to them, to Saudi, and he's part of the negotiations. And Crown Prince had a speech today, a conference, I think it was today or yesterday, that he actually got sprayed on as he was walking to his car. There's an orange paint. His concern, the Crown Prince's concern, is the humanitarian aspect of this war. It still has not been addressed. President Trump promised the people that help is coming, help is on the way, 40,000 people got killed. And now he's trying to negotiate with Mohammed Ghalibaf. Mohammed Ghalibaf is a mirror image of Qasem Soleimani, which President Trump droned. He's an IRGC asset. Mohammed Ghalibaf, as the Speaker of the House currently, he was a mayor. As a mayor of Iran, he stole a lot of real estate money. He's got the blood of Iranians on his hand, and he's got the blood of American soldiers, which came in a body bag on his hand. He's a mirror image of Qasem Soleimani, which in one incident 8 years ago, Qasem Soleimani killed 1,500 students. He brought Afghanis to shoot them. And President Trump, rightfully so, bombed him, droned him because he was responsible with the roadside bombing. So is this guy that President Trump is trying to negotiate with. Senator Ron Johnson says we cannot leave any Islamists behind. We have Jewish people in Iran, we have Baha'is, we have minorities, and people don't want to look like penguins anymore. We're not Muslims. We're the children of Cyrus, the king. We're Zoroastrians. A lot of people have already converted to Christianity. If we leave these Islamists behind and so-called negotiate, true, the President Trump has done a wonderful job thus far eliminating the nuclear issue, and there's other issues we're involved, proxies and whatnot that they send all over, including now that there's a lot of them Islamists in Texas and everywhere. That's been addressed. We will not be completely addressed if we leave these Islamists behind. I just want to know, why is he negotiating, and so is the Crown Prince, with these terrorists?
Brian, you laid out the case beautifully. I think the reason President Trump is doing it is to show the world he's willing to go the last mile to hopefully come up with some sort of negotiation. I think Trump felt that given the decimation of their economy, their military, maybe, just maybe, if you can't make them see the light, they're feeling the heat. So he's giving him one last try, but he's still locked and loaded. The military is still over there. And once it's pretty clear, pretty obvious, everything that you've just now said, he's going to resume the bombing until finally the economy gets to the point where hopefully the Iranian people are going to rise up. That's what I think President Trump is planning on. What do you think?
Well, Larry, if you leave anybody that's close to our Democrat Marxists, they're going to help them again because they're benefiting from it, and they're going to rebuild that in no time. We cannot leave any of these people behind.
Well, Brian, I agree with you 100%. I don't believe the president will leave them behind. I believe that the president is doing this partly for our European allies to let them know, hey, we bombed the crap out of them. We sunk their navy. We destroyed their air force. We took out 2 tiers of leadership. And look at them. They're still saying we're going to try and get a nuke. We're still saying we're going to keep developing our missile program. We're still going to be funding our proxy. So we have no choice but to continue this bombing, this war, until finally the Iranian people either rise up, or we just have to keep a presence in there indefinitely, the way we have a presence in Europe indefinitely, the way we have a presence in South Korea, the way we have a presence in Japan. But the alternative is that these people get a nuclear bomb. We've seen what they do to their own people, as you pointed out, Brian. Killed 30,000, 40,000 of their own people. Put women and children in front of sites where they thought that the Israelis and the Americans might bomb. They couldn't give a rip about their own people. Imagine a regime like this in possession of a nuclear bomb. And 60 Minutes just pointed out how close they were to getting a nuclear bomb. So no longer can Democrats continue to say that Iran did not pose an imminent threat. They did. Now let's talk about Hasan Piker, the anti-Semite, anti-Israeli, pro-boycott, divest, sanction guy. Here's what CNN's Dana Bash said about him, number 49.
Here's some of what he actually has said about the depravity of the October 7th terror attack, the deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Quote, "It doesn't matter if effing rapes happened on October 7th. Like, that doesn't change the dynamic for me. The Palestinian resistance is not perfect." Now, let that sink in. Hasan Piker is excusing sexual violence by Hamas terrorists. He also claims Hamas is, quote, 1,000 times better than Israel. Hamas is a designated terror organization, not just by the U.S., but by the EU, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, just to name a few. And here's what Piker said about the horrors of September 11th, 2001.
America deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it. Like, we totally brought it on ourselves, dude. We did. We did.
And this is a guy who's campaigned with the Democrat candidate for Senate in Michigan. A number of Democrats have appeared on his podcast. Hasan Piker spoke at Yale, number 45.
The fall of the USSR was one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century. Just wait, listen, maybe you'll agree. Not only was there incalculable harm done to every single country under its banner, child prostitution, skyrocketing suicide rates, life expectancy plummeting, but America was no longer contested around the globe. And it is precisely because of the end to that multipolarity that we saw accelerated neoliberalism that is devastating every Western nation right now. Unlimited and unchecked greed. Our successes are leading to our own demise and the demise and collapse of the liberal system. The U.S. has produced disaster after disaster after disaster.
What do you say to this kind of lunacy? Why don't you leave? I'm sure Cuba would be happy to have you. Syria would be happy to have you. Iran would be happy to have you. What would happen if Mao were the sole possessor of the atomic bomb? What would happen if Stalin were the sole possessor of the atomic bomb? What would happen if Iran were sole possessor of a nuclear bomb? Well, we were the sole possessor of an atomic bomb after we dropped it on Hiroshima and Nagasaki for almost 5 years. Did we go around subjugating the rest of the world? Did we use it to expand our influence? We did nothing with it. I'm Larry Elder.
Good.
888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel. Again, this Hasan Piker guy hates Israel, obviously hates Jews, has been campaigning with the Democrat candidate for senator in Michigan. He has a podcast on which a number of Democrats have appeared. And I feel the way Senator John Kennedy feels about Ilhan Omar. Operation Let Her Speak, Operation Let Him Speak. Number 46.
Empires never die quietly, and we must end the American empire regardless. But we must manage the retreat of a superpower from the world stage. This is a challenge for our time. Actually, this is the challenge for our time. Because if we do not do this, then the American empire will come to an end in a much more violent way.
Mr. McConnell, I've never been invited to speak at Yale. I guess I'm not sufficiently anti-Semitic. Number 47.
He said these words, and I think those words still ring true today. He said, and I quote, "The war that began in 1939 ended, but in the ideological dialogue between the two worlds and two leaders, Roosevelt lost the war. The real victor was Adolf Hitler. It is my personal opinion that the contemporary world is moved by the ideas that served as the foundation on which Hitler rose to power." 70 years later, I think history has proven Arevalo right. In place after place, time after time, the United States can never settle down its imperial bloodlust, this forever hunt for manifest destiny.
I'm speechless. And please, Mike Johnson, please, Senator Thune, put this man around the neck of every single Democrat for failing to speak out and denounce this man. If there's been Democrats who've spoken out and denounced him, I haven't heard him. Number 48.
So my question is, when you say Hamas is 1,000 times better, do you actually mean that? Or is that a rhetorical move or like a solidarity signal? Like what?
I mean, it's all of the above. I do mean it. I think it's a rhetorical move because it frustrates a lot of people. I've also said I'm a harm reduction voter. I'm a lesser evil voter, and therefore I would vote for Hamas over Israel every single time.
1,000 times worse than Israel. Israel, 1,000 times worse than Hamas. And he has some very nice thing to say about the Republican Party. Number 50.
I hate Republicans. I oppose them. I say that all the time. I think that the Republicans are far more damaging. The biggest terrorists, the biggest domestic terrorists in this country, the biggest terrorist internationally is the Republican Party. And not only that, but it's just like I want to fight against the growing fascist movement in this country.
Remember the CEO who got murdered? Okay, number 52.
Brian Thompson, as the United Healthcare CEO, was engaging in a tremendous amount of social murder, the systematized forms of violence, the structural violence of poverty, the for-profit paywalled system of healthcare in this country, and the consequences of that are tremendous amounts of pain, tremendous amounts of violence, tremendous amounts of deaths.
So therefore, the death of the CEO, United Healthcare CEO, is justified because, after all, we don't like big insurance companies, medical insurance companies, because they are doing a lot of damage to people, so therefore the CEO should be murdered, and I'm okay with that. Well, I guess when you're okay with Israeli women being raped, there's not much of a distance between that and celebrating the death of a healthcare CEO. Every single Democrat who fails to denounce this man should be in a campaign fundraising letter. Scientists talk about the fine-tuning of the universe. But what if it's more than just fine-tuning? What if it's a cosmic code, meticulously programmed? Consider this. The precise strength of gravity, the specific mass of a proton, the exact speed of light. Alter any of these even by a hair's breadth, and the universe as we know it, life itself, would be impossible. We're not talking about a lucky roll of the dice. We're talking about conditions so incredibly specific, so perfectly balanced, they defy astronomical odds. Is this simply coincidence, or is there an underlying design? The story of everything invites you to explore the mathematical beauty and the scientific puzzles that point to an intelligent origin. Tune in to The Story of Everything and uncover the hidden blueprint of existence. Visit thestoryoferything.film, thestoryoferything.film. In theaters for just 1 week starting April 30th, go to thestoryoferything.film and get tickets. That's thestoryoferything.film. We come back. Southern Poverty Law Center is under investigation for supporting the hate groups it supposedly was set up to fight. I'm Larry Elder.
Now we're together nearly every single day singing.
Motown and more facts. It's the Larry Elder Show.
888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I am Larry Elder. We are Salem News Channel coming to you from the Relief Factor studio. Don't forget your Relief Factor, 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF, or ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. Mofax, Motown. I thought we were going to kill that one. The Southern Poverty Law Center started in 1971. Nonprofit designed to deal with racism, discrimination in the South. It's raised a great deal of money over the years, and then they evolved into talking about hate groups in general. Dr. Ben Carson was listed as a hater. Here's the problem. Racism is no longer a big factor in American life anymore. So what to do if you're an organization like the Southern Poverty Law Center? You have to come up with stuff. So they have literally been paying the hate groups, including agitators, to go out in the streets and agitate. And then that makes the Southern Poverty Law Center more relevant. And then they can then solicit more money, and the whole ruse keeps right on going. When the demand for racism exceeds the supply, you have to come up with new sources. So they've been inventing their own sources. Here is the acting AG Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel, number 5.
Today, a few minutes ago, in the Middle District of Alabama, a grand jury returned an 11-count indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred. The indictment describes this conduct in detail, but one troubling example is that the SPLC was paying a member of the leadership group that planned the Unite the Right protest in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 that resulted in the death of 1 person and injured dozens more. This particular person being paid by the SPLC allegedly received approximately $270,000 over the course of 8 years. In total, according to the indictment, between 2014 and 2023, SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals at least. These individuals were affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations Affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, the Nationalist Socialist Party of America, Nazis, and the American Front. Now, as the indictment lays out, after SPLC paid members of these extremist groups, it created work product that reported on these activities that the members participated in or contributed to. And to that end, it was doing the exact opposite of what it's told its donors it was doing.
Now, reportedly, this investigation started years ago, but the Biden administration shut it down. So if Trump does not get reelected, we never know about this. He said the SPLC was part of the Charlottesville event, number 8.
What about Charlottesville and the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally? Were they involved in that?
Yes. So what we allege in the indictment and what the grand jury found is that one of the individuals that they paid was one of the folks who helped organize that terrible event. And so so imagine what we're talking about, Laura. We're talking about an organization that actively came out and just screamed it from the top of their lungs.
And that the SPLC is not dismantling extremism. It's funding it, number 9.
In total, according to the indictment, between 2014 and 2023, SPLC paid at least $3 million to 8 individuals at least. These individuals were affiliated with the Ku Klux Klan, United Klans of America, National Socialist Movement, Aryan Nations Affiliated Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, the Nationalist Socialist Party of America, Nazis, and the American Front. Now, as the indictment lays out, after SPLC paid members of these extremist groups, it created work product that reported on these activities that the members participated in or contributed to. And to that end, it was doing the exact opposite of what it's told its donors it was doing, not dismantling extremism, but funding it. To carry out this scheme, SPLC created bank accounts in the name of at least 5 completely fictitious organizations that had no bona fide employees or legitimate business purpose.
Unbelievable. Mike Davis is the president of something called Article 3 Project, which is a conservative group established to defend judicial nominees. Number 26.
Yeah, the Southern Poverty Law Center told its donors that it was fighting the Klan, when in fact the SPLC was funding the Klan. That is clear fraud. They got charged with wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy. If these allegations are true, the SPLC is not going to survive this.
Here's what Caroline Levitt said about this, number 34.
It was quite shocking to me to learn of the egregious violations of the law of the Southern Poverty Law Center was committing. And I think that's a story that should be on the front page of every newspaper in this country because they've obviously been duping their supporters and the American taxpayers for far too long. It's a criminal organization, clearly, and that's not our DOJ saying that or Todd Blanche saying that. That's a grand jury indictment saying that.
The Southern Poverty Law Center called Turning Point USA a hate group, called the Family Research Council a hate group, called Moms for Liberty a hate group. And as I mentioned, Dr. Ben Carson was also described as somebody who purportedly was a member of a hate philosophy. This is what these people are doing. Now, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those words weren't written for history books. They're written for you. But it's hard to pursue happiness when pain is part of everyday life. Relief Factor was created to help people address inflammation, one of the most common causes of ongoing aches and pains from aging, overexertion, and just good old daily living. It's a 100% drug-free, research-based formula that work through multiple metabolic pathways to support comfort and mobility. No prescription, no masking symptoms, just real relief so you can keep moving forward. I mentioned my brother Kirk having difficulty going up and down the stairs in the morning. Got better later on in the day, but in the morning was a problem. He began taking Relief Factor. After 7 days, he calls me and says, "This is working." Now, as America celebrates 250 years of independence, give yourself the chance to reclaim your independence. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com, 800-4-RELIEF, 800, the number 4-RELIEF.
Crazy about it. If you're looking for a love that you'll never get tired of, make me yours.
They've gone after the Southern Poverty Law Center, but not the KKK. They've gone after the people, the civil rights organizations, but not the actual extremist groups.
They just freed the Proud Boys. What do you expect them to do?
You're right, Michael. Well, excuse me, I forgot who we're dealing with.
Thank you.
They're on the side of the extremists, it feels like.
No, they're on the side of racists and people who undermine the very principles of the country. And they have been from the very beginning, because that's where Donald Trump has always nurtured himself. Bottom line.
Can you believe that guy used to be the chair of the RNC, Michael Steele? 888-971-SHGE, 888-971-7243. I'm Larry O. You know why they put him there? Because Obama got elected. And the dim Republicans went, well, I'll tell you what, we'll put a black guy ahead of our RNC, and then that way people won't think that we're racist, and then they'll start voting for us. He was incompetent. He's a liberal. He spent his time selling his book and spending money designing his office. He was an embarrassment. And now he's a host on MSNBC, where he belongs. Here's another hit from Hasan Piker, number 40.
Right, guys? I'm pro stealing from big corporations because, they steal quite a bit more from their own workers. However, one thing that might even help your ethical dilemma is the fact that the automated process that they designed these companies know will increase shrink, right? So it's actually factored in. The lemons that you stole are factored into the bottom line of these mega corporations regardless, and they still end up having increased profit margins because they no longer have to pay the cashiers that they used to hire, as opposed to this automated system, knowing full well that people are still going to be able to still steal a lot more efficiently, as a matter of fact, through the automated process.
Where do you start with that? Corporations know people are going to steal, so they put that into their bottom line, and so therefore it's okay to steal from them because they expect you to steal. And they can still make a profit, so go ahead and steal. It's sick. By the way, Speaker Mike Johnson is still confident that we're going to win the midterms in November. Number 39.
Democrats started this. The Republican states are doing what they can do lawfully under their state laws. The people are taking account of this. They're voting accordingly, and we are on track to win in November. Watch.
And let's go out with Tim Walz, who explains why Trump does not like Minnesota. Number 14.
I don't think it's just me. I think he hates Minnesota because we take care of our people. We invest in people. We feed our people. I think that's what it is.
Did you get any heads up or warning before they sent that huge ICE force into your state?
Not really. A Thanksgiving night tweet and all that, and then all of a sudden it was there, and and it just intensified over those, over the winter.
Has he had Governor DeSantis on his show yet? I'm Larry Elder. Do it again tomorrow. God bless.
What can I say? Mamba. The mic has been dropped. All across America.
That's enough. Put down the mic.
The Larry Elder Show.
Andy Chrisman of For Him has spent 40-plus years in Christian music, and chances are he knows your favorite artist personally. Now he's bringing you their stories.
I'm Andy Chrisman.
In his new podcast, 1 Degree of Andy, he sits down with the voices behind the songs for real, honest, and faith-filled conversations you won't hear anywhere else.
That's a great question.
If you love Christian music, this is your backstage pass.
The 1 Degree of Andy podcast.
Listen now to 1 Degree of Andy wherever you get your podcasts.